The video contains spoilers, so in case you don't want to accidentally hear about something you haven't seen in the game and want to experience on your own, save the video for later. Thank you! This video is my introduction into Hollow Knight and my personal journey with it. It's not the sort of review where I touch upon every single thing there is in the game. I feel like it's pointless considering how many people with a lot more hours have already done reviews on it. However, I do mention everything that I think is interesting or important to me related to this game. If there is something in particular that interests you, timestamps can help you with that, and if as the video goes you notice any factual mistakes or you just feel like sharing your own thoughts, comment it down below. I'm open to civil discussions. With that out of the way, let's start. My introduction to Hollow Knight was quite sudden. I didn't even buy the game, my friend did. He's a big fan of Hollow Knight and has all of its achievements, whereas I had never even heard about the game before. Regardless, I knew how much he liked it, so trying it was a matter of honor, especially after getting it for free. Despite all of this, however, I can't say I was exactly fond of the game from the get-go. I had never tried Metroidvania. In fact, I didn't even have a lot of experience in 2D games in general. It was alien to me, and the game had little to no explanation on anything. At the beginning I could wander around, bumping into walls again and again and again, and I'm being honest here, no matter what my opinion on the game is now, having so many dead ends in the very beginning is extremely demotivating. You're not sure if it's you to blame or not. No one explains that it's okay if you can't go up there, it's not your fault, you just need to find another way. Some may say it's logical to assume that, but I would argue it's not exactly the case. A lot of games have parts where you may be stuck because there's something you've missed, and not because it's an intentional choice. And I'm certain I'm not the only one who's traumatized by dead ends like that. As an artist, I feel like it's important for me to mention my opinion of Hollow Knight in terms of visuals, as well as to tell a little of my experience of trying to replicate its backgrounds. Hollow Knight has a very unique style that can be both intimidating and cute, depending on the circumstances. Besides, I'm a big fan of insects, since one of the two big stories I have in mind involves half-insect, half-people characters. The fact that almost everyone in this game is an insect in one way or another, even if some species are made up, is very fun to me personally. What's more, I'm extremely impressed with the way backgrounds are made. Backgrounds have never been my strong suit. In fact, I don't really like backgrounds. They are definitely important. I sure as hell have a lot of experience with them now, especially after my latest big animation, Learning to Live, but they're still quite painful and I'm far less confident in them rather than in drawing people. That's why I took this video in preparations for it as an opportunity to study Hollow Knight's backgrounds. And frankly speaking, after drawing 3 of them already, I came to the conclusion that if you struggle with backgrounds, drawing a couple of Hollow Knight backgrounds might be exactly what you need to gain at least a little more confidence. And reasons for that are quite simple, really. As these backgrounds are for a game and developers wanted them to look a little more realistic yet still keep the overall simple style, every single background piece is divided into layers. I mean, technically every background is divided into layers, but here's it's much more obvious and much easier to notice than in some real-life photos, for example. We always have a foreground that is usually very dark, if not completely black. Then we have the second foreground layer that's colored and, depending on the location, can have some bushes, rocks, and other similar things like that. Afterwards, there is the layer with the player character that has some sort of floor the knight can stand on. Behind it is usually at least one layer of some walls or rocks. And finally, there's the last layer with the main color of the location, maybe some relatively blurry things we can't quite see. Then again, I'm oversimplifying all of this. In reality, every single background has tons of small details, and the layers I mentioned can easily have a few more layers in between them, but the general gist stays the same. If you pay attention and take into consideration how these backgrounds were divided, it can help you understand how to go about backgrounds in general. Speaking from personal experience, I'm feeling a lot more confident now after practicing with them, and this practice was especially hard for me as I had just finished Inktober at the time and was a bit freaked out by the prospects of painting in color again. On one hand, all of this is not some sort of sacred knowledge. Every second background tutorial is bound to mention how important it is to divide backgrounds into layers in your head and color accordingly. Things in front are darker and brighter, things far away are lighter and less saturated. But saying is one thing, and actively studying successful examples is an entirely other story. What's more, the color choices in basically any location are gorgeous, each in its own way, so you can't really go wrong with either of them. In the background, you can see my process behind every single piece. In case you are interested in a full, detailed explanation of my painting process, I would gladly record it, just mention so in the comments down below. The files of these drawings are uploaded on my Patreon, by the way, so in case you're interested and would like to support me a little, I would certainly appreciate it. When it comes to the core gameplay loop, I had a hard time getting used to the fact that finding new things all the time is not guaranteed. You can spend hours looping around the map and have no idea what to do next. There is no clear purpose until locations of the 3 watchers are revealed, but even then you might feel lost, like you are constantly missing out on something. It might be a me thing, but when I boot up my game, I always want to get as much fun and emotions as I can in a relatively short time, mostly because there's a lot I need to do, and time I spend playing is very valuable to me. Wasting it wandering around random corridors isn't exactly fun or exciting to me, and it feels like a waste of time. At some point I did get used to the way things are in Hollow Knight though, especially when it comes to discovering something new. I would aim for the corridors that seem to be unfinished on the map, or some specific parts that I do have on the map but I don't remember visiting. Getting used to this routine, I started to sincerely enjoy the game in a way, especially boss fights. This is a really short chapter, but I just really wanted to mention a funny tendency that both Hollow Knight and Silksong share. At least for me, I don't know if anyone else had the same thing, but basically, I started playing Hollow Knight on the 30th of November 2025, but played inconsistently on and off until dropping the game completely for a couple of months. At that point, I had about 7 or so hours of gameplay. Only in May did I start playing consistently, and kept up throughout the whole summer. So why do I pay attention to this? The exact same thing is happening with Silksong right now. I have almost 8 hours and haven't been playing for a month. The funny thing is that I want to continue but also don't do it. It can be explained by the sheer amount of work I do every day and how busy I am, yet it's odd that it happens with both Team Cherry games and both times around the point of the game when all of the simple beginner content finishes and all of the locations you could get to easily are discovered, so you need to figure out where to go or what to get in order to find the next location. It feels like a determining point of the game. The ones who go past it stay to play the rest, and the ones who don't eventually delete it. Or maybe that's all in my imagination, who knows? Comment if you've ever had something similar, even if it's not related to Team Cherry's games in particular. In the following section, I want to talk about characters you see throughout your journey. Though there are often big gaps in between the encounters, they're still quite memorable. Collecting grubs is not obligatory, but I have a feeling a lot of people make it obligatory for themselves purely based on how cute grubs are. At first I saved them whenever I found one, but in the late game I set myself a goal to catch them all, or free them all, I guess. I was preparing myself to monotonously follow someone's tutorial on YouTube or some kind of an interactive map and eventually collect them all. But fortunately, it turns out there is an in-game map you can unlock to see all of the remaining grubs. The map is not perfect by any means, but it still can help you out a lot. Moreover, it's not just a random object, but something that actually exists based on the plot, and you gotta fight a boss to get it. A small but really nice thing nonetheless. There is a good variety in Hollow Knight NPCs, from friendly, hardworking shopkeepers to mysterious circus cult members. It's just unfortunate how little time you spend actually interacting with them though. I know it's supposed to be part of the atmosphere, a kingdom left in ruins, corrupted by an extremely dangerous virus. However, new players don't know any of that, and frankly speaking don't care much. What they see is that some NPCs can sell you something or give you a ride and tell you a couple of phrases at best. Granted, they change as the game progresses, but it's not guaranteed that every player decides to press the dialogue option on the same character multiple times and might miss these little dialogue changes. At least that's what I felt as someone who recently was a new player herself. For others it might be okay, it depends mostly just on preferences. NPC I have the most interesting story with is Millibelle the banker. However, it's not what you would expect. I wasn't fooled by her money-stealing scheme, like some other first-time players. In fact, I activated it on purpose. At some point in the second half of my playthrough, I decided that I would like to see for myself how Millibelle's scheme works and purposefully gave her 4,500 geo she wanted. After some time she escaped, but I actually had no idea where she would go. I left it a mystery and kept wandering around Hollow Nest, hoping to stumble upon her sometime later. And stumble I did! While I was doing the flower quest, I was using a certain route that, by chance, went right past Millibelle's spa pool. After I found her, I was hesitant to hit. I thought she would die if I did that too many times, and even though she was in the wrong, I felt bad about it. I hit her a little, because money, but some left. There was no achievement about her anyway. However, when I decided to find out for sure and looked up Millibelle on the internet, it turned out she just can't die, so I did what any reasonable person would do and beat the living shit out of her. Deserved. Speaking of the flower quest, I really like the Grey Mourner. She looks gorgeous and her silhouette is extremely remarkable. The story is sad though, being divided with her loved one. I was trying my best to avoid falling at the very end of the route, the hardest one, what a surprise, but I still fell short exactly where I was afraid to fumble. Team Cherry knew what they were doing here, that's for sure. And Zote is, well, Zote. Somewhere around the time I beat the Watcher Knights, my genuine interest in the Hollow Knight started to rise and slowly solidified. I realized the importance of a right build and felt eager to fight every single boss, and oh boy, there are a lot of bosses in Hollow Knight. What I appreciate the most is how fair they are. You don't feel like they are wasting your time and kill you purely based on luck or because they are unbalanced. Bosses here use simple moves that look easy to learn, which makes you think that they should be a breeze to counter. But here's a catch, they truly are easy to counter, but by themselves. When multiple of these moves are stacked together, you need to react quickly, and that's what makes the fights thrilling. At least that's the way I felt about them. No matter how hard they might seem, you know you can do it, and the win is up to you, not the game. In this regard, this feeling is similar to Cuphead, another indie game where generally you feel like the fight is up to you. It's just a matter of practice and patience. Two qualities I've mastered after years of drawing. The final boss is an exceptionally memorable event for me in this game. I could have done it at least 10 hours earlier, but I just didn't want to. I was determined to complete 100% before the fight, so maybe I could have a different ending. As I suspected that if I were to finish the game now, then it wouldn't have a pleasing ending, especially after seeing some vague chain images near our little knight in some of the speedrunners' videos. However, my friend noticed it in time and warned me that I wouldn't be able to complete the first ending if I had the requirements for any other. As such, I made the decision to complete the first ending first, even if I was almost certain it wouldn't turn out particularly pleasant. It wasn't a choice-based game after all, like Detroit Become Human for example, so that was totally fine. As I suspected, the Hollow Knight ending is extremely sad, but also easy to complete. The boss is relatively simple compared to other bosses. On top of everything, in the final phase the Hollow Knight starts stabbing itself to help us. It only adds to the tragedy, but also makes me feel like I'm kicking a child instead of taking part in an actual boss fight. Regardless, at the end, we got what we came for. And immediately after that, I do what? Get straight to the next boss fight, of course. I had already completed the White Castle parkour section, and all I needed was to upgrade my Pale King charm to the Void Heart. A gloomy place, might I add, but one of the coolest in terms of atmosphere and has an extremely unsettling cutscene. Unexpectedly, the Void Heart has an OP ability to make you friends with shadows, and also Hornet now feels like showing up to help. And here I really need you to focus. Just imagine, I fight with the Hollow Knight, expect something new. Suddenly, Hornet swiftly grabs the Hollow Knight and holds it for me, and I just keep hitting. I don't know what I was expecting. No need to say that this ending was even worse, as I basically doomed Hornet to be eternally locked with both me and the Hollow Knight. Or killed her, not sure, but both are equally bad. On the next try, everything went smoothly, though, and the Radiance is a hard boss, truly worthy of being the final one. She deals 2 masks of damage and doesn't let you rest for a minute. The only time during which you have a chance to reset is between the first and the second phase, before the floor disappears. The boss was quite demoralizing for me. I clearly remember being annoyed at the fact that in order to even try beating it, I first need to beat a completely separate boss. I know it makes sense, and I know that Hollow Knight isn't hard to beat as soon as you get acquainted with its patterns, but oh my god. My lucky run was extremely tense. I was on the brink of death multiple times. My friend watching me play nearly had a heart attack a couple times that I was at 1 or 2 masks. And still, even the Radiance isn't impossible to beat, and I defeated her at last. Bosses in Hollow Knight are one of the best things about the game, as I've briefly mentioned previously, but talking about every single one of them would be too long, so here's a quick rundown of my favorite bosses. Second Hornet fight is the 5th place. The fight was quite challenging for me at the time, especially when Hornet started putting spiky balls around the arena. Even though now, after everything I've been through, the fight is a piece of cake for me, I still remember it as a challenging part that was just right for my skill level at the time. Number 4 is Broken Vessel and Lostkin. I put them together because they are essentially the same boss fight, with the Dream variant being harder, but all in all, not much different from the original. Both of them were challenging, but the way I dealt with the Lostkin was especially interesting. The thing is, I knew it was a hard boss, presumably a very hard one, as I've heard in some videos. And thus, to save myself some nerve cells, I avoided it like plague, doing anything but fighting it as I thought I needed to get stronger. To be fair, this strategy worked in a way. By the time I had to fight him because I couldn't figure out another way to collect more essence, I was prepared, and though it was still quite challenging, I adapted pretty quickly and was much more confident in defeating it. Number 3 is Nosk. Nosk is in my top 3 for multiple reasons, one being that I stumbled upon it completely by accident. Basically, my first time route pretty quickly got me to Deep Nest. It's definitely not a place you want to visit as a newbie, my friend was kinda surprised about it, but I didn't know better, and wandered around local corridors until I saw myself somewhere below, like a reflection. It was honestly so incredibly cool and unexpected. I didn't know what to do and what this reflection was about. However, I don't remember why, but I wasn't successful in following Nosk at the time. Later on, I asked my friend about it, and he did say that that was some creature I could follow, and was slightly surprised I hadn't already done that, but basically, later on I went back there, much more prepared and ready to learn what this boss was about. It's not particularly challenging, but the animations and atmosphere are stunning. It surprised me like no other boss did. Radiance is number 2. Radiance is both beautiful and deadly. On top of that, it marked a new 3rd ending for me. I had already talked about it plenty in the first 3 ending sessions, so I guess there isn't much to add on top of that. And the first place is Troupe Master Grimm, as well as Nightmare Grimm. They are both taking the first place for how challenging they are and how gorgeous they both look. They are the 2 bosses I had consistently struggled with and had to be especially patient and determined to beat them. The Nightmare Grimm version is also special in a way because of how my recording went. Basically, I didn't have that much storage, and video files were heavy, so I would stop recording in between attempts. But who could have thought that I would stop recording and forget to start it again afterwards, precisely at the successful attempt? I was so frustrated that I rushed to the Hall of Gods to beat it again purely out of spite, even though I had already been trying to do so for so long. By some miracle, I actually almost beat him in the first attempt and successfully got him in a couple more. That's the recording you've been watching since the start of this section. Basically, to wrap it up, a very emotional boss fight for me that I had to look up other people's footage for and learn based on the patterns I could find. Very fun stuff. Now, the last category we're gonna have is some other random stuff I want to mention, because I really don't know where to put it, and I'm a bit too lazy to make some categories, separate categories for all of them, so here we go. Funnily enough, Hollow Knight is the first game that incentivized me to get myself a controller. I used to be the type of player who would strongly advocate for keyboard and mouse, and ignored controllers as much as one could, trying it only on my PS3 back in the day, and a little bit in Castle Crashers. This game, however, really made me consider a controller. Not that it's impossible to play without it, by no means. In fact, my first half of the playthrough was with a keyboard and a mouse. Speaking of the settings I used, they are on the screen in case anyone's interested. And the 1 and 2 for spells is because my mouse has 2 buttons that are set to 1 and 2 respectively. But in case you have a different mouse, I'm sure you can just choose some of the buttons more suitable for your particular needs. Basically, halfway through my playthrough, I got myself a controller, partially because of Hollow Knight, and partially because Steam Player Together is a and I had to relearn everything. At first I moved and fought like an absolute moron, but in the end I learned to be so quick as to do whatever the heck I was doing there during my Radiance boss fight. Very fun stuff, and I mostly play 2D games with a controller now. The fact that some things in this game are not explicitly told anywhere but on a wiki makes this game both interesting and frustrating at some times. Like with the fountain, where as it turns out I can actually get a piece of my mask and it's not just a scam. The hilarious part is that at some point I got back there, but it was still not enough money, and it really did look like I just kept scamming myself by coming to the fountain again and again. I have the mask shard now, so it's fine, but still, I don't know how I would figure something like that out without outside help. Now, the music in this game is very good both in boss fights and while traveling in different Hollow Knight locations. I personally prefer dynamic boss fight music though, purely because the music for most of the locations is pretty slow and sad overall, and it's not quite my vibe. It's very good though, there is no doubt about it. Trial of Fools was my first long-term challenge that would take many separate instances of me logging in, trying, crashing out, and logging out. It's obnoxious how long the trial is. I know it is explicitly called the Trial of Fools, but still, oh my god. And I also know it's technically not necessary for any of the endings, but the achievement was too tempting. Besides, I have completed 2 of the 3 challenges already, so why not do the last one? Am I right? Am I right? The Pantheon was a pain, mostly the 4th Pantheon, due to time constraints I had put on myself. I really wanted to get 112% completion on my first ever walkthrough before the release of Silksong, and was grinding like crazy. On the day of Silksong's release, before the release itself, I was getting so close, but each time something was in the way, mostly just the pure vessel, because of my lack of experience with it and lots of stress as getting to it, though it became sort of a chore, was still costly both in terms of time and my mental stability. It was the only boss in my memory, with the exception of Grey Prince Zode, that forced me to go to it separately and train with it. I did look up some videos on it though, and felt like I could do it. I just needed one more attempt.
What follows is a brief construction montage.
We've got the music, makes you move it. Got the song that makes you lose it. We say jump, you say how high. Put your hands up to the sky. We've got the music, makes you move it. Got the song that makes you lose it. We say jump, you say how high. Put your hands up to the sky. Oh, 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 oh. You didn't know that you fell. Oh, 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 oh. Now that you're under a spell, listen to the sound of my voice. Oh, soon you'll find you don't have a choice. Oh, captured in the web of my song. Oh, soon you'll all be singing along. We've got the music, makes you move it. Got the song that makes you lose it. We say jump, you say how high. Put your hands up to the sky. We've got the music, makes you move it. Got the song that makes you lose it. We say jump, you say how high. Put your hands up to the sky. Oh, 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 oh. You didn't know that you fell. Oh, 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 oh. Now that you're under a spell. Oh, oh, oh,
Later, in the void.
During my Nosk boss fight, the guy seemingly had a crash out and decided to jump up and down multiple times for no reason. Maybe that was just his alternative to Minecraft twerking since I was at one mask, but I don't know, just kind of funny. Hornet also decided to bug out on one of my Pantheon attempts. Maybe she realized she should be in Silksong soon. At the time of me playing Silksong hadn't been out yet, so yep. At some point in the Royal Waterways, I stumbled upon whatever this thing is called. I couldn't find the name, unfortunately. But why was it so resilient? I struck it so many times that instance, and it still proceeded to run my way. Why? I gotta give credit where credit is due. The whole aesthetic of the dark, bloody circus and the way you summon it, and just everything in the DLC with Grimm is absolutely great. The Grimm child, though, not the most useful baby, is still cute and can help out. I personally was so happy to know there is a quest that lets me have a companion on my journey. I know now there are more charms that can do that, but back then that was really cool to me. Dirtmouth music as well as Elderbug's voice are both stuck in my brain purely because of how much you climb back up there to buy things or to get to different locations. It's truly one of the most memorable places. Speaking of places, I would say that my top 3 favorite areas in the game are place number 3, the Hive. The Hive is a place that didn't get much attention. In fact, you can beat the game without ever seeing it. The only obligatory reasons to go there, as far as I remember, are if A, you need to unlock Hive Night boss, B, you are collecting flames for Grimm, or C, if you want to complete Hunter's Journal. Otherwise, you have no reason to visit the place. However, I like its atmosphere a lot, and the fact that it's bee-themed makes it even better. I have bee characters myself in my own story, and such a beautiful place that utilizes everything related to bees in such a smart way is amazing to see. Local enemies can annoy if they happen to group up and attack you at once, but that doesn't happen if you don't rush through the place, or the opposite. if you run fast enough. The Hive Knight is an okay boss, by the way. I like his little bees attack, though the Queen looks cooler, despite appearing only for a short while, unfortunately. Now, the place number 2 is Fog Canyon. Fog Canyon jarred me the moment I stepped there. In fact, I couldn't believe there could be a place as gorgeous as it. Crystal Peak is also pretty and also purple, but choosing between the two Fog Canyon is a little better in my opinion. It doesn't have much to offer in terms of gameplay, much like the Hive, but its atmosphere is what I adore and the reason I painted it as one of the practice backgrounds. And number 1 is, surprisingly for me, to be honest, Green Path, because of how pretty and green it is. That sounds funny, I know, but compared to other starter locations that are dim and grey for the most part, Green Path gives you some hope that this place has much more to offer than meets the eye at first sight. Honorable mention is this blue area in the abyss, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a shame we don't spend nearly enough time there, but I absolutely love the butterfly motif it has. Stunning. Now, while collecting flames, I randomly found Quirrel here. I haven't mentioned him in the characters section, so I might as well here. He's a nice guy, but wasn't quite memorable to me. I do really like the idea of him being the keeper of one of the Dreamers' masks, though. He's a good guy, and he finally found peace. Yay! I absolutely love Willow's design. She doesn't play any part in the main events, and you may as well never notice her, but I did, and I have a sticker with her on my laptop. I once showed it to my friend and he ominously suggested that I dream nail her sometime. I thought it would be worse, but yeah, she isn't as nice as one could think. And finally, I didn't do everything there is in the game yet. I want to one day get all of the achievements though, but for now, I'm happy with the 49 out of 63 achievements that I got. Phew, finally! It's the end of this long, though hopefully interesting review. It's not the sort of review you would expect from a serious critic or an old-time gamer reviewer, but it's not meant to be. I wanted to share my experience with Hollow Knight and how much I like it despite the flaws I find in it. It's an adorable bug game that I might not have picked up were it not for my friend and his gift. Thanks everyone for watching. Some art videos are on the way, animations are being worked on as well, though a little slower. Wish me good luck, and I hope you're having a great time out there, whatever you're doing. See ya!
Sidenote.
Huh?